All right, what's up, guys? How's it going? This is Will here, and this is a different, unique kind of live stream. Considering I usually don't live stream on Fridays, but here I am because usually, guys, I haven't been consistent with it lately, and there's been a reason for that, which we're going to get into. As you're probably seeing, the title of this live stream is a little bit different than what you're used to. Usually, we're discussing movies, shows, anything entertainment wise. But this one's going to be a little bit different. I'm hoping, we can connect and just talk about some other stuff that's probably, well, definitely more important than that kind of stuff. And it'll definitely be a different kind of change of pace. So, just to give you guys kind of a channel update, the reason I haven't been updating or uploading as much this specific week is because 2 days ago, my family dog Annie was actually hit by a car and killed. She was only 4 years old. And this is, messed up my family pretty badly. So, right now we're all kind of still in shock over it because this dog was such a big part of our lives and had was pretty much in every little thing we did. She was pretty much the centerpiece of like our family existence. So it's been a rough couple days trying to get through that. So in this live stream, like I said, I'm not looking for pity. I'm not looking for you guys to come on in and say I'm so sorry. Like, I'm just looking to talk about this kind of stuff with you guys. If you guys have similar experiences, I'd love for you to share them and we can discuss whatever you guys are going through. Because we don't really do that stuff enough on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times it's just very business-like, very professional. We talk about movies and that's it. But a lot of times there's a lot more important stuff going on, and we don't really recognize that stuff, and we don't really discuss it. And that's kind of something that's, it's kind of sad to think about. Because it doesn't happen nearly as much as it should to discuss issues like depression or going through this kind of loss, dealing with grief, that kind of stuff. It's definitely a lot more important than what we make it out to be, and it's a lot more difficult than people let on. So yeah, that's basically what happened. I mean, it was a really shitty circumstance. It was very unlucky. It was a situation where she came out of a blind spot. It was a little bit dark outside in the morning. She came out of a blind spot. The truck didn't see her. And that was it. You know what I mean? Super unlucky. My parents live in a small neighborhood. There's like two roads in it. I mean, the chances of it happening are highly, highly improbable and highly unlikely. But, hey, it was fate. It was fate. There's nothing we could do about it now at this point. It was unlucky. It is what it is. So, we're in this live stream, we're just going to discuss this kind of stuff happening. I mean, life is always changing. It's very uncertain. It's very unpredictable. And you guys probably know that yourselves. And if you're younger, you're going to realize that if you haven't already. I mean, and it's really interesting with these kind of things because they do change your perspective on a lot of different things because we go through so much shit day to day and we get so rung up about stuff that really in the scheme of things just really doesn't matter. It's really not important. Like, I do the same shit. Like, worried about, do I get new subscribers today? Or people interacting with my videos? Like, of course, that's great stuff. I mean, of course, it's great if people like the content and, want to feel part of the community and that kind of stuff. But, like, really what's more important is, like, family and loved ones and that kind of stuff. And, like, actually, like, you guys are, become that for me, actually, which is kind of interesting. But, just that kind of stuff, like worrying about stuff that, not taking things for granted. That's really the hard part about really dealing with any of this kind of stuff. I mean, you can't really, sit and not take things, and take things for granted and not enjoy the moments you have because like I said, you never really know what could happen. Like I said, your ticket could be punched at any moment. Your family member's ticket could be punched at any moment. And you really have to, make sure that you get, the most out of the time that you have with pretty much everyone that you care about. So, it's always difficult anytime you're dealing with this kind of things. And it's funny because I was researching it because I've noticed this, like, with family members, with other friends, with pretty much anyone I've seen on social media. A lot of times it's interesting because people get more upset about their dogs dying than they do, like, family members, right? And it's interesting to think about it that way because you think it'd be the opposite. But it's actually not. And it's interesting because I think it's because most of the time dogs kind of offer you unconditional love, and they're such a big part of your daily routine where people aren't really, unless it's like a very close family member. So dogs are such a big part of your routine, and they provide unconditional love and support and camaraderie and all that stuff. And that's why I think when they, especially when they're like snatched away from you at 4, right? So it's tough. But even when they're older and you have to like put them down or whatever, that's tough too because it's just, dogs are so innocent and pure, and that's why I would see one die. It's not the most pleasant experience, I'll say that. And that's why it also oftentimes hits people harder than having family members die, because family members or even friends, right? Friends, they'll go in and out of your life every now and then. You might have ups and downs with that person. Dogs, you don't have that, right? It's all ups with dogs. There's no downs. And that's why it's kind of tough, because, there's so many good times and it's hard to, kind of reflect back on that stuff. But that's really what you have to do with dogs, family members, loved ones, significant others, anything like that. Dealing with that kind of stuff is always hard. Dealing with loss and grief. Everyone has their own way of grieving, right? Like I'm mostly pretty composed now, but it's still difficult for me internally. You know what I mean? It just is. So like it's not something that I'm shy about necessarily, but it's just part of life. Honestly, it's always like, it sounds cliche, but always that quote from Yoda, right? He says like, mourn them, do not, they, rejoice, because death is part of life. It's that kind of thing, right? So it's hard to do that obviously in the moment, but hey, we're all different. We all have different ways of approaching things. And that's, just kind of how it operates. But, it's a part of it, and that's just what it is. So, but I think it's interesting. The reason I kind of titled this episode the way I did is because a lot of times it does change your perspective, because like I said, like there's other shit that's happened too to family members in the past where like, like I said, there's so much stuff going on in your day-to-day life that you get so upset about and so rung up about. And it's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's so irrelevant that it doesn't really matter. And I don't think we really realize that. And a lot of times it's easy to forget it. So even after something traumatic happens or something bad happens, it gives you a more grand perspective. You can still, like in a year's time or 6 months time, you might be back in that same routine of like getting all upset about stuff that's stupid, right? Stuff that's not really that important in the grand scheme of things. And it's interesting when that happens, because like I said, you don't even realize. It's like human nature kind of, where like we kind of just like hyper focused on whatever our main routine is that day. But we don't really think about the bigger picture. We don't really think about the bigger picture and how there's way more important things to focus on. And that kind of stuff. So it's always tricky. But so Jessica Lauren said dogs are also difficult because you have limited time to begin with, for sure. And they hit a certain age, even when they're healthy, and that time is creeping up, for sure. Absolutely. We had a dog previously, actually. We always get Australian Shepherds. That's our breed of choice. We always like them. We had a dog before Annie a while back named Jackie, and she was a little under 13, and we had to put her down because she was just not able to move, really. Like her back legs were like shot. So we had to put her down. That was really tough for everybody because, she was such a huge part of our lives too. And like you said, Jessica, like you have a limited time with them to begin with. You have maybe, it depends on the dog, but 10 to 12 years probably. And that's it, right? And that's it. You don't have 70 years like you would with a human, right? Or sometimes you get less depending upon the circumstance. But dogs are, and they're so, like I said, they're so pure and innocent and good-hearted that a lot of people aren't like that. And you kind of lose that special spot, and that special spot, in your heart, that it's just tough. It's tough to replace. I mean, I've told my family members, like, you never replace a dog, right? You can't replace a dog. Like, dogs have specific personalities like humans do. Like, if my brother and I are not the same, right? My brother and I are not the same. Like, you and I aren't the same. So like if I, were to pass away suddenly, like you can't just like replace me with someone else because they're not the same as me. Dogs are the exact same way. They all have different personalities. You can't replace one dog with another. Like they're irreplaceable. So, and that's an interesting way to think about it, because a lot of people will jump right in and get another dog, but you can't replace a dog. Like it's a personality, right? It's a personality and a companion, and they're all going to offer different things. They all have different traits. So you can't just replace it with another one, but. That's a great point for sure. You already know you have limited time to begin with, which is tough because, and you try not to think about it. You try not to think about it because when you're in the moment, you're enjoying the dog and the companionship and, the loving nature of the dog. You don't want to think about, man, I only have like 5 more years with this dog, right? You'd probably think about it every now and then. But it's not something you just kind of want to leave it outside your mind, think happy thoughts. But yeah, that's kind of how it operates most of the time. But yeah, honestly, like I mentioned, like changing perspective is a big thing. Like it's, we get focused on other stuff that matters a lot less than this kind of stuff. I could bring up too. There was, I think it was about 4 years back now. My grandmother, who was such a big part of our lives, actually had a brain tumor. She was, I think, like 78, and she was a huge part of our lives. It came out of nowhere, right? She just got a brain tumor, and she was, terminal. She had no shot of getting through it, basically. And that was tough because, she was around for a lot longer, a little bit longer, like maybe 6 months longer or something like that. But that's the kind of stuff, like I said, it gives you perspective. Like that shit could happen to you any moment, right? That shit could happen so quickly, and it changes everything pretty much in your life. So it's and like I said, that stuff gives you perspective. Same with a dog, right? Same with a dog getting put down or a dog getting hit by a car. Same deal. It's like anything could happen. And you definitely have to make sure. I know it sounds like preachy, I get it, but you really have to make sure make sure that you enjoy all the good times, because that's the difficult part. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. But I mean, honestly, in these kind of situations, like everyone grieves differently, like I said. So I'm not gonna tell anyone like how to approach this kind of stuff, because everyone has a different way of doing things, right? Everyone has a different way of approaching this kind of stuff. But I think it's important, regardless of how you do it, to make sure you remember the good times, right? Like celebrate the dog or celebrate the family member, like talk about the good times, talk about their personality, what they offered you, like how you enjoyed this about them or that about them. Don't harp on the negative, because it's done, right? It's done. You can't change it. It was fate. It's done. You can't go back in time, obviously, and change it. So the only thing you can do is move on and reflect on the positive stuff. So that's really how I approach it. And I think everyone should not everyone should do it the same way, but that's something that's important to consider for sure. Jessica said, my little Tarantino, that's a great name, by the way, turns 9 this year. I feel like just yesterday was a baby. Yep, exactly. Time really flies with a dog. It really does. I'm guessing that's a dog, yeah, but if not, it's still a pet. But time really flies with a pet. It just happens that way. Because most of the time you're enjoying it, right? You're enjoying it, and a lot of times they keep you busy, so time can fly because they'll keep you active and busy and just moving all the time. That's how Annie was. So, to put it lightly, for sure, she was she was a demanding dog. She was an Australian Shepherd, so she was very demanding, very loud and boisterous. So she was a great dog, though. She kept us busy and kept us moving, that's for sure. And we we operated how she wanted us to operate. So that was what's interesting about it. But yeah, like I said, if you guys have anything you want to discuss with family members or loved ones or those kind of things, stuff you're going through that we can discuss, those kind of things. A lot of times people aren't there for each other as much as they probably should be. And that's interesting to think about. Like I said, I think everyone gets so wrapped up in their own lives and their own chase, routines, and it just doesn't, compute with some people. And that's interesting to think about, just because it shouldn't be that way. Obviously, we should, be more supportive of each other, but it's not always like that. So, and it's hard actually, because I have like probably maybe 3 to 4, maybe 5 friends that I can like truly count on for this stuff, that I tell this stuff, that will really support me in these times. Plus family members, obviously. Family members are always supportive for the most part. But yeah, like you'll start to make like friends that you can really trust with this kind of stuff, and friends that won't really help you very much, because they're not really interested in helping you. So you kind of know, like, there's like different levels to friendship. It's kind of like, remember on MySpace, the top 10 friends? It's like that, right? It's like that, but it's like a compartmentally listed friendship database in your head. So that's important to kind of recognize those friendships, the friends that are definitely there for you and support you more, because those are rare, and those are the ones that are worth holding on to for sure. Because it's always it's always difficult to find those type of people. But yeah, so let's discuss priorities. So priorities are always difficult because it depends what kind of where you are in your life, what you're doing, whether you're in school, whether you're working full time, whether you're whatever else, whether you're a combination of both, whether you're a parent. Priorities are hard to lose track of, and a lot of times, like I said, when this kind of stuff happens, more tragic, traumatic stuff, it gives you a new perspective and lets you know, like, hey, my priorities are, a little bit out of whack, need to be here instead, because this kind of stuff, like I said, changes your perspective. It gives you a new perspective and lets you know, like, hey, you weren't, you need to focus on this more important stuff, because you need to, take advantage of the time and the experiences you have now and the positive things, instead of focusing on stuff that's way less important and way less vital to, actually living a good life. So that's what I think is interesting about this kind of stuff. And like I said, this stuff always changes your perspective. It gives you a new approach to everything. And that's what's interesting about it. Like I said, it can really, it's traumatic, but I guess it is kind of a learning experience. So if you're more prone to the ideas of like a higher power or like a purpose behind everything, then it makes sense in the regard that, like, it's hard to grasp, I guess, the logic behind like why that would happen. Like what is the purpose behind like something terrible happening? But I guess I get it in the sense that you learn new things, you grow as a human, and your family comes closer together, your friends come closer together because of it. So maybe that's the reasoning, the logic behind it. It's really difficult to say. because obviously, if you believe in that kind of stuff, it's difficult to understand like what the logic is behind it, because the argument is that we're human, so we don't understand like God or whoever you believe in's approach to everything, because it's a higher power, right? We don't get it. We're humans. We're simple humans. We don't understand it. But and we're never gonna understand it. So like I said, it's a traumatic thing. It's accidents happen. And it just is never easy to accept, but you get better at it. It's interesting because as you get old, I'm 26 now. I'll be 27 in a couple of days, actually, April 4th, my birthday. And you never, you get better at it. You never like fully get over this kind of stuff, but you definitely get better at it. You learn how to cope and adjust a little bit better. So that's what's tricky about it for sure. But yeah, like I said, like this kind of stuff is all interesting to discuss. And like I said, if you guys have any other than Jessica, keep sharing stuff. But if you guys have any experiences you want to share, then feel free to let me know, because there's a lot of different things a lot of different directions we could probably go with this. But I just thought, like I said, I'm not looking for pity. I'm not sitting in a self pit of despair, basically, right? You can see me now. I'm doing okay. I put out a video yesterday, so. And I'm going to see a movie today. I'm going to see Love, Simon. So hopefully I enjoy that. I think I'll enjoy it. It sounds pretty good. So I'm going to see that. I saw Ready Player One the other night, and I enjoyed it a lot. You guys saw my review for that one, and I enjoyed it. So hopefully I'll see some other stuff too. I got this Last Jedi Blu-ray, so I'm gonna watch. I watched the throne room scene on my TV. It was awesome, dude. I love that scene so much. But I'm gonna watch the whole movie. I might skip the Canto Bite part, because that's not my favorite section of the movie. I don't understand why it's in there necessarily, but yeah, I'm getting sidetracked. But yeah, that's very easy for me to do. That's why, like, when I'm teaching in front of a class, a lot of times I did this too as a student. You try to sidetrack the professor and get them talking about other stuff so they'll run out of time, and not discuss the boring stuff, but discuss the more interesting and entertaining conversations. That's kind of what most people do with professors, and it's always funny when that happens. But it's interesting for sure. But that's what the students kind of do with me too. They'll ask me about other stuff, and I'll have to keep them on track, because it's easy to get sidetracked, and then you can't get everything done. So yeah. So Jessica said, got to take it a minute or a moment at a time, for sure. Take it a moment at a time, and then go from there, because it's always, like I said, it's never easy. She said, keep up the other things to make you happy. Exactly. So like, try to focus on the positive stuff, get through, any sort of, hurdle you're trying to cross, those kind of things. But yeah, get focused on the positive stuff, and that's really the only way to get through. Like I said, focus on the good times you had. So I mean, like I mentioned, she was 4.5, and I would do it all over again for sure, because I would rather this happen than never to have had her at all, right? Because we got 4.5 good years out of her, a lot of happy memories. So that's kind of how I view it. It was definitely worth it in the long run, because you definitely can't live your life like too afraid to take chances or take risks, especially when committing yourself emotionally to someone else or to a pet or something like that, because that's really like no way to live, honestly. It's no way, because you never put yourself out there. You never, take a chance to achieve something greater and feel something greater, right? So that's why it's a little bit tricky when that kind of happens. So that's why, focus on the good stuff, like Jessica said. So she's very insightful stuff. But yeah, definitely, that's kind of how I view it too. So always focus on the positive stuff, and then kind of go from there. That's what's interesting about it. But yeah, so if there's anything else you guys want to discuss, let me know. This live stream probably won't. We're 20 minutes in. This live stream probably won't be as long. But yeah, there's just a lot of stuff. Like I said, I could probably talk about. But I think I've pretty much made my point in terms of, perspectives change when tragedy happens. You can't change it. You have to accept it. You have to move on, as hard as and difficult as it is. But like I said, you always got to be prepared for this kind of stuff, because anything can happen at any moment, and everyone thinks it can never happen to them. It can only happen to other people. It's not the case. I've been around long enough to know that. So you kind of have to, like I said, prepare yourself for these kind of things, because you never really know for sure. So always take advantage of the opportunity and the time that you have, because otherwise it could be, you could get, like I said, something could get snatched from you, or someone could get snatched from you at any moment. So it's really important to, make sure that you're focused on the good stuff, and focused on the important stuff that's going on with that person or with that dog or whatever the case may be. So, and it's interesting, because a lot of people I think a lot of people who don't own dogs probably don't understand it, right? They might not understand it, at least. I'm not going to say probably, but they probably like, well, it's just a dog, right? But well, if you've had a dog or had a cat or any pet that you really got attached to, that it's different, right? It's definitely different. And I think you've experienced an emotional connection that's rare, and it's different than a human to human connection. It just is. Like I mentioned earlier, I talked about a lot of that stuff: unconditional love, support, companionship. A lot of humans don't offer you that because they're doing a lot of different things at once, right? They're focused on their own lives. Dogs are focused on their own lives too, but they're mostly focused on you. So, and it's definitely different, right? So, and if you haven't owned a dog, I can understand how you could not, not really understand or not really empathize with it, I guess I'd say. But if you own a dog before, you probably could empathize with it. So, things happen, things, you get unlucky sometimes. That's just the luck of the draw, basically. But, that's just kind of how life goes a lot of times. So it's no big deal. I mean, it happens, we'll all have to rebound from it. But, if you guys experience this kind of stuff, then feel free to comment it or message me or whatever, and we can, discuss it. I'm happy to talk about that kind of stuff. So, other people you never know too. Like I was talking to my mom, actually, you never really know what other people are going through. Like, there are people who have family members, like grandparents dying or mothers dying or fathers dying, or siblings who are all really important to them, or even their dog, right? So they don't know what they're going through. So it's important not to jump too quickly to conclusions and judge a book by its cover, just because there's so many things that you don't know that's going on with that person that could be affecting their outlook, right? So sometimes if it's a close friend, ask, right? Ask and start a dialogue and start a conversation and get into that kind of stuff. But it's important to recognize that kind of stuff, that we all have something we're going through, right? We all have something we're trying to overcome and some kind of demons we're trying to fight off, right? So that's just kind of how it works. And I think people forget that a lot of times. So it's easy to forget, honestly. Like I said, you get wrapped up in your own direction and you're wrapped up in your own life. So it's real easy to lose sight of that. So, and lose sight of the other stuff I mentioned so far. So, we'll kind of see how it goes. But yeah, so Jessica, thank you for the insights. We'll hang out as long as you guys want, really. But since we don't have too many comments, I'll hang out a little bit longer and see if anyone else wants to discuss anything else, and we'll kind of go into that. But if not, I enjoyed having this conversation with you guys. Whoever's going to watch this, in hindsight, once it's archived on the channel, totally fine. Feel free to comment on that video too and discuss whatever you want. If you have something you're going through and you want to share, feel free. Like I said, feel free to share whatever you like. We can all work through it as a community together. That's part of the fun. Well, not part of the fun, but part of the value, I guess I would say. It's not fun, obviously, but you know how it is. So, if you guys have any final questions or any final thoughts, feel free to share, and then we can kind of go from there. So, like I mentioned, there's, just keep focused on important stuff. Don't lose sight of what's important. Make sure to enjoy everything. That's really the lessons that I've learned. So even over the last couple days, I've learned it before, but it's easy to forget. It's easy to lose track of those kind of things and lose sight of what's important. So it's always tough when that happens. So I'll wait a little bit longer. But yeah. So yeah, just always make sure you have sight or keep track of the important stuff. So sorry, I'm looking at my thing real quick. My live stream I want to make sure it was still working. I was confused for a second. But yeah. So yeah, I think that I guess will be it. So I appreciate you guys hanging out, and I appreciate the support as always. So not everyone is comfortable discussing this kind of stuff. So it is what it is. Like I said, it's not easy for me either, but I can get through it because I do all right with it. I've dealt with enough of it I'm only 26, but I've dealt with enough, losing family members or dogs or loved ones, those kind of things. So I've dealt with it enough to kind of know what it's like and what it feels like. So I appreciate you guys hanging out. So I guess I might have a video out later today. If not, it'll be out maybe Sunday. So somewhere around then. It'll probably be Love, Simon, but I'm also working on a request review. There was a request for Dark City, so I'm working on that, and that'll probably be out probably early next week. I'll probably do Love, Simon first, considering I'm pretty behind on it. So I'll probably do that, and then I'll do Dark City. So we'll kind of see how it goes. But yeah, so that's it pretty much. So I appreciate you guys hanging out. I know this live stream isn't quite as long as the other ones. But I guess it's a bigger topic, like about humanity and that kind of stuff, and companionship and love. But it's easy to roll through, I guess. So I'll see you guys in the next video. I appreciate you guys hanging out for the support as always.